Yesterday, the Permanent Representative of the Islamic Republic of Iran also addressed a letter to the President of the Security Council stating that, and I quote, "In the late hours of 13 April 2024, the Islamic Republic of Iran carried out a series of military strikes on Israeli military objectives," unquote. He stated that the action was taken, and I quote, "in the exercise of Iran's inherent right to self-defense, as outlined in Article 51 of the Charter of the United Nations, and in response to the Israeli recurring military aggressions, particularly its armed attack on 1 April 2024 against Iranian diplomatic premises," unquote. According to the latest reports, Iran launched hundreds of drones and missiles from its territory towards Israel, with most intercepted. Several missiles reportedly struck within Israeli territory, one of which damaged an Israeli military facility in the south of the country, and overall, a few civilians were injured. Madam President, when the nature of the attack became clear, I stated the following last night, and I quote, "I strongly condemn the serious escalation represented by the large-scale attack launched on Israel by the Islamic Republic of Iran this evening, and I call for an immediate cessation of these hostilities," unquote. I remind all Member States that the Charter of the United Nations prohibits the use of force against the territorial integrity or political independence of any state, or in any other manner inconsistent with the purposes of the United Nations.
Guyana is alarmed over the recent escalation of tensions between Israel and Iran, especially in a region that is already experiencing intense conflicts. We urge the parties to exercise maximum restraint, to desist from launching further retaliatory attacks, and to seek the path of peace. Any further attacks will have devastating region-wide consequences, and also for the wider international community. The world cannot afford another war, and the Middle East certainly cannot afford another war. The attack on Iran's diplomatic facility in Damascus earlier this month and Iran's attacks on Israel yesterday have only served to heighten tensions in the region. We urge the parties to abide strictly with their charter obligations and to avoid a larger conflagration.
Less than 2 weeks ago, in this Council, Sierra Leone strongly condemned the use of force in violation of the UN Charter, relevant international law, including the development and conduct of friendly relations, diplomatic and consular protections, as well as conduct in the region that may lead to an escalation or exacerbate tensions in the already volatile situation. In a similar way, Sierra Leone strongly condemns claimed reprisal attacks not in conformity with international law and the UN Charter. With the Middle East at a knife's edge and at the precipice of a dangerous escalation, either by an intentional calculus or accidental one, with equally grave global ramification, the path to peace is certainly not tit-for-tat military attacks.
We strongly condemn the large-scale attack on Israel launched by the Islamic Republic of Iran yesterday. We resolutely deplore the serious escalation, as we have done in the case of the attack on the Iranian consulate last week. The sequence of these events threatens to accelerate the spiral of violence, escalating into a broader conflict of unpredictable scope.
Thank you, Madam President, for bringing us here today, and thank you, Secretary General Guterres, for your briefing. The United States condemns, in the strongest terms, the unprecedented attack on the State of Israel by the Islamic Republic of Iran and its militant proxies and partners. Iran's intent was to cause significant damage and death in Israel. It launched over 300 munitions, including more than 100 ballistic missiles and land attack cruise missiles at Israel, as well as explosive unmanned aerial vehicles. Iran's reckless actions not only posed a threat to populations in Israel, but also to other UN member states in the region, including Jordan and Iraq. The Security Council has an obligation to not let Iran's actions go unanswered. Indeed, for far too long, Iran has flagrantly violated its international legal obligations, notably through the actions of its Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, or IRGC. By arming Hezbollah in violation of Security Council Resolution 1701, by arming, facilitating, and enabling Houthi attacks on Saudi Arabia and the UAE, and, more recently, merchant and commercial shipping in the Red Sea in clear violation of Resolution 2216 and in defiance of Resolution 2722. And, of course, Iran transferred Shahed one-way attack drones to Russia, the same drones it used in last night's attacks against Israel, at a time when such transfers were in clear violation of Resolution 2231. In recent years, Iran has also repeatedly violated international law by targeting with mines and seizing commercial ships in international waters of the Persian Gulf and surrounding waterways, just as it did on April 12, when it seized a Portuguese-flagged ship near the Strait of Hormuz. Iran continues to detain both the ships and its crew, comprised of citizens from 5 countries, including Russia. Iran was also, in a broad sense, complicit in the October 7 attack on Israel because it has provided significant funding and training for the military wing of Hamas. This Iranian support contributed to the current crisis in Gaza. Colleagues, these and other reckless Iranian actions are not inherently defensive actions against other member states. Given the threats Iran's aggressive actions pose for international peace and security, we have a collective responsibility as members of the Security Council to ensure that Iran complies with the Council's resolutions and ceases its violations of the Charter.
The attacks carried out yesterday by Iran constitute a grave threat to international peace and security and to the much-desired regional stability. My government has strongly condemned the attack against Israel and has called for an escalation of the conflict to be avoided. Such an escalation could have unpredictable consequences, including a conflagration that could affect the whole of humankind. Ecuador adds its voice to the widespread call for tensions to be reduced and for threats to be avoided.
My country, Algeria, is following these developments with utmost concern and interest and warns against grave consequences should the circle of conflict in the Middle East broadens. That's why we call upon all parties to practice self-restraint and avoid escalation. Would like also to reiterate what the SG has said, and I quote, that neither the region nor the world can afford another war. End of quote. And we have warned during the Security Council session that have discussed the attacks launched by the Israeli occupation forces on the Iranian embassy building in Damascus at the beginning of this month. We have warned against the aftermath of not putting an end to this arrogance and behavior of the Israeli occupation in the region, and we have always emphasized that this could bring the whole region into conflict. And today you can see that our point of view was correct and our wording was honest. That's why the Middle East is undergoing very critical circumstances that makes it incumbent upon all international actors to listen to the voice of wisdom so that we can all sail to safety together.
We are now witnessing an extremely dangerous situation that could cause catastrophic consequences for the whole region and the world. Japan is deeply concerned about the attack by Iran against Israel using numerous drones and missiles, which put huge population in real danger and could further aggravate the current turmoil in the Middle East. Japan strongly condemns such an escalation. We are seriously concerned that this large military action will increase the already extremely heightened tensions in the Middle East and lead to a wider and more serious regional confrontation with global security and economic ramifications. It is imperative for the Security Council to address this matter as a united body responsible for international peace and security to contain the risk of the region plunging into an abyss.
France condemns in the strongest terms the unprecedented attack that was launched by Iran against Israel yesterday and which threatens to destabilize the region. The Secretary General also condemned this attack. That attack was a serious and major threat to international peace and security, and in particular to stability and security in the region. In deciding to undertake such an unprecedented act, Iran crossed a new threshold in its destabilizing action and is risking a military escalation for which it would be responsible. We call upon Iran and its allies to, at long last and without further delay, cease their destabilizing activities throughout the region.
The United Kingdom condemns unequivocally Iran's reckless attack against Israel, which risked thousands of civilian casualties. The scale and nature of Iran's heinous assault, the first direct attack from Iran on Israeli soil, poses grave risks to the security and stability of citizens across the Middle East. The United Kingdom has long been clear that Iran plays an unacceptable role in destabilizing the region, and that it also bears responsibility for the actions of groups it has supported militarily, financially and politically over many years. Through this attack, Iran has once again demonstrated that it is intent on sowing chaos in the region. As we have demonstrated, the United Kingdom will continue to stand up for Israel's security and for that of all our regional partners, including Jordan and Iraq. We welcome the actions of our allies to deter the Iranian threat. No one wants to see further bloodshed. The United Kingdom is also continuing to work urgently alongside the international community to stabilise the situation and prevent further escalation. It is vital that all parties exercise maximum restraint and refrain from any action that may heighten tensions further in the region. We also call on Iran to release the MSC Ares and its crew unconditionally and without delay. Iran's actions do nothing to advance the prospects for peace in Israel and Gaza. As set out in Security Council Resolution 2728, the United Kingdom remains resolved to work with international partners to secure an immediate pause in the fighting in Gaza, to get aid in and hostages out, leading to a sustainable ceasefire without a return to destruction, fighting, and the loss of life.
Precisely 2 weeks ago, when discussing the Israel airstrike on the Iranian diplomatic mission in Damascus, we raised serious concern that the incident could escalate regional tensions and could potentially lead to retaliation and heighten the conflict between Israel and Iran. Regrettably, our concerns have materialized. Yesterday, we witnessed a series of military strikes on the Israeli soil carried out by the Islamic Republic of Iran, invoking self-defense under Article 51 of the UN Charter. We express our deep concern on yesterday's Iranian strikes. A tit-for-tat cycle of mutual aggression is not consistent with the logic of peace and peaceful coexistence between states.
The Republic of Korea is gravely concerned about the current situation in the Middle East, exemplified by yesterday's attack by Iran against Israel, using numerous drones and missiles. The Republic of Korea condemns these large-scale attacks, which are not in compliance with international law. To make the situation worse, freedom of navigation is now being threatened, not only in the Red Sea, but also at the Strait of Hormuz, which cannot be justified regardless of any excuse. Since the outbreak of the horrendous terrorist attack by Hamas against Israeli citizens on the 7th of October last year, and subsequent military operation by Israel in Gaza and ensuing humanitarian catastrophe, the international community, including the Republic of Korea, has repeatedly warned against the possibility of increasingly dangerous spillover in the Middle East. Earlier this month, when we witnessed the instance at the Iranian consulate that resulted in casualties in Damascus, Syria, the Republic of Korea expressed its deep concern that additional violent incidents could escalate into new tragedies in the region.
Switzerland firmly condemns the coordinated attacks by Iran on targets in Israel last night. These attacks are part of a spiral of violence which is already dangerously underway in the region, as we also saw with the airstrike against Iran's consulate in Damascus on the 1st of April, an attack that Switzerland also condemned.
Since the Gaza conflict began, the international community has deplored the unacceptable humanitarian catastrophe in Gaza and made strong demands for an immediate ceasefire to end the hostilities. It has also expressed grave concerns at how a prolonged conflict would exacerbate the tensions in the region with serious compounding spillover effects. On the 1st of April, Iran's diplomatic premises in Syria were targeted in an airstrike, resulting in multiple casualties on the Iranian side and serious damage to the said premises. This incident was a serious violation of the UN Charter and international law, as it violated both the sovereignty of Syria and that of Iran. It was of a most egregious nature. A moment ago, Secretary-General Guterres briefed us on the escalation that happened on the 13th of April, which China finds highly concerning. We have also noted that, according to Iran, its military action was in response to Israel's aggression against its diplomatic premises, and the matter can be deemed concluded. China calls on the parties concerned to show maximum calm and restraint and resolve their differences and disputes in accordance with the purposes of the UN Charter and international law to avert any further escalations.
The Middle East is experiencing one of the bleakest and most volatile periods in modern history, which risks spiraling out of control if all sides do not take a step back. This was a point that Malta stressed on 2nd April following the deplorable attack by Israel on the Iranian diplomatic premises in Damascus on 1st April. We had stressed the need for de-escalation and for maximum restraint to be exercised by all actors in the region. Regrettably, these calls for caution have been disregarded given the recent developments.
The Iranian attack seriously injured Amina El-Khassouni, a 7-year-old Bedouin girl in Israel. But look at this video that shows how Israel intercepts Iranian drones above the Temple Mount and Al-Aqsa Mosque. Here, you can look at it. This is the Al-Aqsa Mosque.
This American support, this blind and unlimited American support, has led the occupation authorities to mistakenly believe that they are above the United Nations and above international law and above the conventions and the resolutions that were adopted by our organization for decades. The support led these authorities to believe that they can continue perpetrating their crimes and their escalation of the situation in our region with no response and no consequence. My country, the Syrian Arab Republic, has warned the Security Council and the Secretariat repeatedly in official letters, warned of the dangers of an escalation, of the explosion that the Israeli occupation authorities are trying to spark to cover up for their military failure in Gaza and to find justifications for it to continue its genocide and other atrocities against the Palestinian people and the accompanying hysterical attacks on countries in the region.